Very pleased now to be joined here on the SB Nation NFL show by the one, the only, the legendary, the incomparably handsome, internationally famous. He went to Harvard. If you did not know, it is the one and only Ryan Fitzpatrick. Ryan, thank you so much for taking the time to join us here at SB Nation.
What a nice intro. Thank you, RJ.
I'm curious, at what point did the Harvard thing, or did you become aware that it was a thing? Like that it was in the pantheon of Antonio Gates played basketball in college?
Yeah, it was right away. It was the only thing anybody knew about me, right? I think I was a really late draft pick, so I got thrown into a couple games early, and everybody was scrambling to figure it out. And that's the one thing that pops up, and so that's what I became known as for a long time. And as my career went on, I think it waned a little bit, but obviously something that's always still there, but not a bad thing to be called the Harvard guy.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, there are worse schools, I guess, to be associated with. But you mentioned as your career went on, I have so many questions, and I've always wanted to speak to you. I feel like sometimes when professional athletes, not just in the NFL, develop or become famous, that we latch onto these nicknames and we act like they probably were never called that in their life ever before. Were you ever called Fitzmagic before the end? Because I have, you're shaking your head.
I
No, that's
never was.
impossible for
No.
me to believe.
Yeah, I never was. That it caught on a little bit in Buffalo towards the end. Originally Amish rifle was a little
Right.
more popular in Buffalo. Uh, and then the beginning of the 2011 season is kind of the origin story of Fitzmagic, I think. Uh, dabbled in a couple different places, and then really once the Tampa stuff happened with the Deshaun Jackson outfit in the post game presser, that's really when it took off.
Yeah, Kirk Cousins, who you just saw, obviously picked up a lot of fame last year for the shirtless chain thing. Like you kind of did that first, like that became like an international sensation. I know you had quite the moment after the Buccaneers time with Deshaun, but you and Kirk kind of a common denominator in that sense. What did you make of Thursday night? Obviously, you were there with Prime. Great return for Thursday night football. Kind of a sneaky, fun game despite some weird, sluggish starts. What were your overall takeaways?
Yeah, it was a slow start to the game. Philly's offense was actually getting booed early on in that game. So I was impressed with the way they adapted. Brian Johnson, first time play caller here for Philly, they were given looks where they just need to continue to run the football, hand it off, hand it off. Sometimes as a coordinator, that's a hard thing to do because you've got all these great pass plays in, and you've got a great quarterback and receivers and a great tight end, but they adjusted during the game, and it was ground and pound a lot of the time. They hit a couple deep shots to Devontae Smith, as we all saw, but I was also really impressed with Kirk Cousins. I mean, he hung in there. He was getting beat up early. They had a couple guys out. Their center was out. They ended up losing and going to their third string left tackle during the game, but he really hung in there and played well. So ended up being a great game. But the atmosphere in Philly, we weren't able to get there last year. Strangely enough, for me, I played Philly 7 times in my career, and I never played in that stadium other than in preseason, which is just kind of a weird quirk. But so that was the first time I'd been in a regular season game in Philadelphia.
That is very cool. If I'm ever at some sort of pub trivia, I think
Yeah,
you helped me out.
there
But
you go.
it's been really cool. I agree with you, by the way. I'm a bit more of a Kirk defender than the average person. And the initial turnovers weren't his fault. I know he had the sack fumble in the second half, but I mean, dude just got buried early. But what has the Prime experience been like for you? You're still somewhat fresh out of the NFL. And it's this new thing, new technology. I mean, and it's not just the standard Prime broadcast, but everybody's all into the next gen stats version and things like that. You get to travel every week, and I would imagine you get your weekends kind of normally because it is Thursday night. Like, I have to imagine it's just a cool kind of second career for you.
It really is. It was a nice transition last year to be able to do it. And I think you hit it on the head. Being able to travel every week and to be able to go to these cities and to be able to feel the energy of the stadiums. And really, as players, you're so insulated and you're going to the hotel and you're focused, and there's only a few things, meetings. Maybe you'll meet up with somebody for a dinner, but you're there for the football game and that's it. And with this, You do. You get to breathe the city in a little bit. You get to meet up with people. There's a little less time where you're truly all your focus is on the game. You get to kind of do some other things and experience the city and gain a different perspective of what the city's all about and the fans. So that's been a really fun part for us as we've traveled from city to city to be able to feel that.
You guys have a great group chemistry. It's a lot of fun. Thursday night is a different vibe as an NFL fan, especially as you get deeper into the season. And so, you know, you got something in the crock pot, right? You still got to get the kids up for school the next day and stuff. And so you want to hang out with some friends. And I've always enjoyed that. And so you guys are doing really well. I mentioned pub trivia a little while ago. I got to be honest with you, Ryan, because I would never lie to you. I'm not a big frequenter in pub trivia, but I imagine you are, particularly overseas, maybe with your new partnership with Jameson. Can you tell us all about this? Because this is one of the more interesting things that I've ever run across.
Yeah, it's fun. I mean, I was able to play overseas, you know, when I was a player, and now this idea got brought to me, and I think it's a great one. So Jameson and I are unofficially calling for a pro football game in Dublin, Ireland. We think it's time. Everybody's looking at different spots around the world where we can play football, and we just think what a great spot to do it. Great history, tradition, and I think they like the last name Fitzpatrick to team up with that as well.
Yeah, there's a great ad that's associated with this. You do some, I don't even want to call it acting because well, I mean, I do certainly, but there's some like breaking of the fourth wall. It's a more unique ad, again, in terms of ones I've seen in my lifetime. And it involves some obviously people in the Dublin area. It's very cool. And so we'll throw the link to the ad in our YouTube version of this show or this interview, excuse me. But yeah, I mean, so is that like if you could move anywhere in the world, would you want it to be Dublin, I guess, after this?
Yeah, I love Dublin. I think my wife, I don't know that she would be too happy with that, you know, with the 7 kids and finally at this point in our life having a little bit of stability
Sure.
and being in the same place for more than 1 year. But yeah, Dublin, Ireland, such a great place.
I always think about you have to be, and your wife has to be just like the best mover in the world, like the best like packer of things. And you probably have like this routine of like, okay, this is what has to happen first, et cetera, et cetera. If a pro football game in Dublin is announced by September 13th, 2024, Jameson is going to celebrate in a big way by offering select fans 21 and over who join the huddle a flight to Dublin to celebrate the momentous occasion. So I imagine you'll be there as well, presuming this does happen. I mean, again, we're seeing games in Germany and Mexico and obviously London. So why not Dublin at this point?
Yeah, but we've got to get on it too because we've
Right.
got to get this thing going before the start of the season next year. So hopefully people catch the wave and get it going.
That's what we're pushing here for you, Ryan, here at SB Nation. So I mentioned the ad. You're wearing a green jersey, which you have at one point in your career before your tenure with the New York Jets. If it isn't obvious to you, I cover the Dallas Cowboys here at SB Nation.
I got that. Yeah.
Yeah. And so obviously, you know, interesting game for Dallas and New York. You were actually the last Jets quarterback to win at AT&T Stadium. Did you know that?
The starting quarterback in that game was Kellen Moore, probably, right?
Well, but I'm saying you were the last Jets quarterback to win because you
Yeah,
guys
yeah.
won.
I'm just trying to think of who was in that game for the Cowboys. I think it was Kellen Moore.
It
Maybe
actually
Matt
was
Castle.
not. If we're being technical, Matt Castle
It was
started
Matt
the
Castle.
game.
He got benched and Kellen Moore came in. Yeah.
I want to ask you about the Cowboys, but something happened in that game that I've never seen that maybe you have. Matt Castle was called for intentional grounding while throwing an interception. Again, I've never seen that before, but I hope that's never happened to you. It hasn't to my knowledge, but have you ever seen that in any football game at any level?
Well, apparently I was in that game, but I did not. I was probably celebrating the interception. I don't remember that call, but that's hard to do. Yes.
That was a rough time to be a Cowboys fan because Tony Romo was injured, but you guys were a cool story, and obviously Brandon Marshall and Eric Decker. It was just really cool. I was rooting for you guys kind of on the side. This year's Cowboys team, you guys talked about them on the pregame show on Thursday night. Obviously looked great last week against the other New York team. And again, they don't get the opportunity to play Aaron Rodgers, obviously, this week. What are your thoughts on Dallas overall as we sit here after 1 week of NFL play?
Well, I think on the panel, we're all really excited about their defense. It's going to be a very dominating defense. You know, I think one of the stories that didn't get told enough this offseason was Steph Gilmore coming over. Just the veteran presence, the way he's going to be able to help Diggs and the other DBs, and just that defense in general. I mean, he's a guy It was obviously the defensive player of the year. He's got great skill. He's kind of towards the tail end of his career, but just that veteran presence and being opposite Diggs, he's going to add a lot to that defense. As we saw against the Giants, the pressure from the front four is insane. That makes the DB's job a lot easier. So the defense is going to be dominant. I think some of the questions are going to be about the offense. Offensive line, can we stay healthy with the receivers? Everybody's really excited about Brandon Cooks being in. I know he's got some lingering maybe issues that he's dealing with right now with his back or whatever it is. I'm excited for Gallup, just being another year removed from injuries, hoping that he can return to form. And I've always been a Dak lover. I know he also gets a lot of grief in the media. We're talking about Kirk. Dak's kind of in that same category where if he makes one mistake, everybody jumps all over him. But he's got great leadership. And I think they have a really good shot this year. I mean, obviously, the class of the NFC right now, if you ordered it, it's probably Philly, San Fran, and Dallas. And then you don't know who's after that. But those three right there are those three teams can beat anybody in the AFC.
I think that's really well said. You guys will be in Dallas the Thursday after Thanksgiving on Amazon Prime when the Cowboys host the Seattle Seahawks. I know you didn't make it out to Dallas last year. Dallas does that generally. They go Thanksgiving to Thursday night. It's pretty kind of tradition for them at this point. Who do you think's that fourth team right now in the NFC? Because that's a really great take by you, but really common take. Like who's the lurking team? I think a lot of people thought it could be Seattle, but last week kind of spooked some people.
Yeah, and the amazing thing about that game last week was it was in Seattle too, right? And so even Minnesota, who had 13 wins last year, they lost at home to Tampa. It's okay, you can excuse the loss to Philly, but at home in the opener to Tampa, all of a sudden that has you scratching your head too. So I don't know. I mean, NFC South, who's going to come out of that? Atlanta looks a lot better this year. Maybe New Orleans, but it gets difficult when you start playing that game of who the next one's going to be. I think Detroit and what they showed week 1 against Kansas City right now they're that team. Detroit didn't have a great game, yet they still beat Kansas City. So I really am looking forward to watching them a little bit more to see how that goes. But I think right now they're probably in the running to be that fourth team in the NFC.
Yeah, they have a chance to snatch it directly from Seattle this week. Last one for you, Ryan. We talked about the Jets obviously facing the Cowboys this week, and the Jets have been talked about a lot this week, but everybody's like so quick to connect them to, quarterbacks who are in free agency or who have retired or trade candidates, whatever. As somebody who has retired from the NFL, and you talked about like you've got stability, and I think everyone can not put themselves in your shoes, but understand how that would be something your family appreciates after everything you've been through throughout the course of your career. How hard would that be? I mean, for you personally, if a team did call you, like how hard would it be to tear you away from a life that you've, established after leaving the NFL behind?
Yeah, I think everybody's different with that. For me, I'm 100% content with the way my career went, with everything I put into it, and 100% content just being retired, getting to be a dad, getting to, watch the games on Sunday now with my kids. All that is really fun for me. So definitely depends on the person, but I'm enjoying life right now.
That's awesome. You do fantasy or anything with your kids now?
I don't, but they have lots of leagues. My oldest son, because we lived in so many places, is in 9 leagues. So we think we're going to put it on his college applications because it's a really impressive management skill with all those 9 rosters.
I bet Harvard would appreciate it to take things full circle here.
I hope so.
Ryan Fitzpatrick, everybody check out jamesonsports.com for the Jameson touchdown, whole promotion. Let's get a game in Dublin. If so, you can do the Guinness challenge with people. I think that would be really cool to see you do in Dublin. Awesome. Ryan Fitzpatrick, thank you so much. Best of luck this season on Prime. We enjoy watching. Thank you very much.
All right. Thanks, RJ.